In 2000, a man named Mike May had his sight restored after 43 years of blindness. He was 46. Surgeons had developed a procedure that could finally correct the damage done when he was 3 years old. He woke up from surgery and opened his eyes and saw his wife's face for the first time. He had no idea who she was. He could see her perfectly. Light was reaching his eyes. The image was forming. But his brain had never learned to decode a human face. To him, it looked like a collection of shifting shapes, meaningless, unreadable, slightly frightening. He could see. He understood almost none of it. That story gets filed under inspiring most of the time. Surgery restores sight. Man sees world. But what it actually reveals is something stranger and more uncomfortable. Mike May's eyes worked fine. His brain didn't know what to do with them, which raises a question nobody thinks to ask. If you can have working eyes and still not be able to see, what exactly is vision? What the blind actually see? Here's what most people get wrong about blindness. They imagine it as darkness. Black, like a screen turned off. That's almost never what it is. People who lose sight gradually often describe it as fog first, then gray, then a kind of ambient nothing that isn't quite dark in the way. Closing your eyes is dark. People blind from birth don't experience darkness at all. Darkness is a visual concept. You need functioning sight to know what its absence feels like. In 2014, researchers at Harvard asked 21 people, blind from birth, to describe what they experienced when they tried to visualize something. The answers were almost universally the same. Not darkness, not black, not nothing. Something they couldn't name because there was no word in any visual language for it. One participant said it was like trying to describe what the number 7 smells like. The question doesn't fit the format of the answer. Charles Bonnet syndrome. In 1760, a Swiss philosopher named Charles Bonnet noticed that his grandfather, who had gone almost completely blind, was seeing things. Vivid things, detailed things, birds perched on furniture, children running through rooms, men in elaborate coats standing at windows. Full scenes, fully rendered, that weren't there. His grandfather was not confused. He knew they weren't real. He'd reach out to touch an apparition and watch it vanish, but they kept coming back. What Bonnet had documented was the brain's response to being cut off from visual input. When the eyes stop feeding information to the visual cortex doesn't go dark. It starts generating its own material, spontaneously, unbidden, with extraordinary detail. This is now called Charles Bonnet syndrome, and it affects somewhere between 10 and 40% of people with significant vision loss. The images can be simple: patterns, grids, floating geometric shapes, or they can be complex enough to pass for reality. People report seeing faces, crowds, landscapes, entire rooms full of strangers who move and gesture and never speak. The brain, deprived of input, invents it, and what it invents looks exactly like the real thing. What this reveals about vision, this is the part that should change how you think about your own sight. Because what Charles Bonnet syndrome reveals is that vision was never really coming from your eyes in the first place. Here's how it actually works. Your eyes collect raw light data. That data travels to the visual cortex. And then the visual cortex does something most people don't realize. It doesn't play the image back like a projector. It makes predictions. The brain builds a model of what it expects to see, based on everything you've ever seen before. It fills gaps. It corrects for your blind spot, a region of your retina with no receptors at all, that your brain quietly papers over without telling you. It smooths motion. It constructs depth from flat images. What you experience as seeing is mostly your brain's best current guess about the world, with your eyes used primarily to check the guess and update where needed. You are not seeing the world. You are seeing your brain's current theory about the world. And most of the time the theory is right enough that it doesn't matter. But it is a theory, and it can be wrong. The visual cortex repurposes itself. In people blind from birth or early childhood, the visual cortex doesn't sit idle. fMRI studies show it activates when blind people read Braille. It activates when they process complex speech. It activates when they navigate a room by sound alone. The brain is not a fixed structure. It recruits available space. A region built for images, deprived of images, starts processing touch, starts processing language, starts mapping space from sound. and it does this better than the equivalent regions in a sighted brain. Blind musicians are disproportionately represented at the highest levels of performance. Not because blindness creates musical ability, because the visual cortex, reassigned to audio processing, gives them more neural real estate for sound than most sighted people will ever have. Same brain region, different software, completely different kind of perception. What Mike May couldn't do, back to Mike May. After surgery, he could catch a ball thrown at his face. Reflexive, automatic, no learned processing required. Light and color arrived immediately. Those things don't need to be taught. What he couldn't do was recognize faces, couldn't reliably read expressions, couldn't make sense of complex scenes with multiple moving objects. Things that sighted people do so effortlessly they don't notice they're doing anything at all. 3 years post-surgery, brain scans showed his face recognition area was still largely inactive. Some neural pathways, researchers believe, have to be established during specific windows in early development. Miss the window and the capability doesn't fully install. He was given the hardware. The software never arrived. He adapted. He describes vision as receiving a language you can hear but cannot parse. The sounds are reaching you. The meaning isn't. The close. The question of what blind people see turns out to be the wrong question. The right question is what any of us are doing when we think we're seeing. Because the answer is that we're all constructing a version of reality from incomplete data. Filling gaps, making predictions, living inside a model that mostly matches the world, but is never quite identical to it. The difference between a sighted brain and a blind one isn't that one is seeing and the other isn't. It's that they're running different models, built from different inputs, using different hardware for the same fundamental task. Both are interpretations, both are guesses. Mike May can describe his wife's face in precise detail. He just can't look at her and feel the recognition that sighted people feel. Something about vision, the part that makes it feel like knowing rather than processing, never fully arrived for him. He's not missing sight. He's missing what sight becomes after 46 years of practice. And the honest thing to say is that nobody completely understands the difference.